All right, I'm back. I think we're good with the connection. Let me know if it's lagging. Let me know if it freezes. Hey Megan, Terry, thanks for coming back to the stream. Like I said, a lot to talk about. I have not done a live stream in a while, and of course, the news keeps on coming. Uh, So today I have a couple stories that I want to get to. Gonna try to do at least four of them. All right, so I think it's working. I think we're good. Uh, all right, everybody who's in the chat right now, can you give me a one if it's okay? Give me a two if it's bad, like if it's frozen, lagging, and there is going to be a lag between the time you guys hear that and when I say it. So just do this real quick. Um, um, all right, I'm seeing a one. Megan, I got a two from you, one from Arkita. Uh, okay, I'm good now, Megan. All right. So let me do the live stream before I don't know what the fuck else could go wrong. Give me 1 second. Uh, all right, so just understand technically this might not be the best live stream, but we're going to make it work because I'm all out of tricks up my sleeve to make this better. So, a lot of stories to talk about today. The first one I'm gonna start with, well, I wouldn't. I'll save that for the end because I'm gonna start with that. But one of the stories I want to talk about is this food shortage that is coming because of the uh, war in Ukraine, partially because of just the war in general, but also a big part of the food shortage that's coming is uh, uh, in part because of the sanctions that we put on Russia and Belarus. Uh, so that's going to be one story that I get to. Also, I'm going to talk about the RT being censored. It started with some countries or in Europe, they banned RT. Then RT America shut down for financial reasons because of all of the craziness and the sanctions on Russia and the censorship. Uh, and then a couple weeks ago, we learned that RT is just completely removed from YouTube. So RT and Sputnik, uh, which are considered Russian state media, removed from YouTube, which is a huge deal because there were so many great journalists doing great work and had great archives of what has happened in terms of U.S. foreign policy over the last I don't like 20 years or close to. So that is definitely a big story that I want to talk about. What was the other one? Oh, of course, Julian Assange. So the Supreme Court in the UK ruled on the appeal to the extradition, the previous extradition ruling, where they sided with the U.S. and decided to grant their extradition request. Julian Assange legal team, they applied to have they applied for an appeal at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court denied even having the appeal. So it looks like Julian Assange is going to be extradited to the United States, short of some miracle or something like that. The Supreme Court denied the appeal, so I guess they're just waiting on a date to set the extradition. And this is again just another terrible story. So I'm going to get to that at some point in the live stream. And the story that I'm going to start with is Biden. There's just been this like a dust up about Biden's comments on Russia and basically suggesting that, calling for regime change is what he was doing. He was calling for regime change. And a lot of people were shocked by this. I don't know why everybody was shocked by this. That is clearly the policy of the U.S. right now and our allies is to try to force regime change. One of the examples for that would be the unprecedented sanctions being put on Russia. Again, that's part of the tried and true playbook, regime change playbook of the U.S. and our allies over the last however many decades. The sanctions, the funding, the arming Ukraine in this war, and of course the cool, all of the things that the U.S. have been doing up to this point. It hasn't really been up in the air. They're antagonizing the Russian government, and they want to force Putin out. Is what it looks like, and that's all what the actions have been, especially over the last few months. So I don't know why there was such like a shock around Biden's comments, because he was literally just saying out loud what the policy has been. But so I'm going to talk about that too. But I have. Give me 1 second. Let me try to take care of this before I do this live stream. It's not even going to be a minute, just like 30 seconds. All right. Yeah, I'm back. So I have a video to play for the first segment that I'm going to do. Let me make sure I can. All right, so this clip is a little bit longer. I try to cut it. I can't find the one that I cut, but we're gonna make it work. I'm gonna play that clip and I'm gonna respond. But first, before I get into the topics that we're gonna get into today, well, let me get into these live chats. All right. I see the live chats, and we'll get to them after because there's already more than I thought. So we'll get to them after this segment. So, and also for the people who aren't watching this live, good news for you. I've read the comments like I always tell you guys. I read all the comments, and um, now I'm going to be try. I'm going to upload the different stories that I do in the live stream separately. Uh, I will find time to do that. I know there's something that you guys wanted me to do. Um, I have no reason not to do it. So I'm just gonna cut up those videos. I'm gonna upload them. I'll try to start uploading some from this live stream the very next day, and we'll see how it goes in between this and work and all that stuff that I have to do. But if you are able to contribute, the links to donate are in the description box of the live stream. Also, Cash App is linked in the live chat of the live stream. All right, so let me get into this first segment. So, the U.S. position on Russia over the last few months, since before the start of this war, really going back to 2016, it's been incredibly hostile and antagonistic. Uh, and through the sanctions and our actions trying to isolate Russia and demonize them and all the specifically the foreign policy that we've taken towards Russia over the last few weeks, especially with the unprecedented sanctions, sanctions on Russia's central bank, sanctions on Russia, major parts of Russia's economy, basically trying to implode their economy. Uh, it's clear that they're trying to force Vladimir Putin out, and hope that somebody more who's more willing to be a puppet of the United States takes control of Russia. That's been the policy because anytime you look at an example where we use these sorts of tools like economic warfare, like Iran or in Venezuela or in Cuba, the aim is to create instability in the country to the point where there's unrest and people just try to overthrow the government. So I thought it was understood that this regime change is comes hand in hand with sanctions, and also the actively taking a side in a war against Russia is what we're doing with the economic warfare, sending the military equipment and all those things to again actively take a side in the war against Russia. I don't know how you do that without trying to overthrow the other government. That's usually how you win a war. So it's to me, I thought that's what we were doing this whole time, which is why I've been firmly on the side against any escalation because it seemed like we're going to push this regime change option that we do all the time. But Biden made some comments about it and apparently took some people by surprise. Give me 1 second, actually. All right. Yeah, he made some comments about this and he took some people by surprise. I'm going to play the clip. It's about 2 minutes long. The most important part of the clip is towards the end of the clip, towards like the final 30, 40 seconds of the clip. So I'm going to play that and come back and break it down with you right now. Oh boy. Mm. All right. So that clip Having technical difficulties. I'm going to try to download it again. That's wild. Uh, yep, sorry. A little rusty, everybody. Give me 1 second. Got the link. Okay. Yeah, this is why I always do this before the live stream. Uh Give me 1 second. And I am surely going to cut this out when I upload this clip by itself on YouTube. Oh, I don't think I could download it while I'm doing the live stream. This is. Does anybody, if you can let me know in the chat how I can play. Oh, I think I would have to. I don't think I could do it live right now. Well, that's unfortunate. um, all right, so I'm just gonna ask that right there, and I'm gonna get into this other something else I want to talk about when it comes to this whole Ukraine and situation, which is just the hypocrisy of it all, and it's worse than hypocrisy because it's any benefit of the doubt, which I was very stingy with to begin with, any sort of what I'm trying to say is the worst interpretation you have of these people making these foreign policy decisions, that's most likely what closer to reality than if you were to give them the benefit of the doubt. Because the way I've seen this war in Ukraine be weaponized to advance imperialism, it's it's been ridiculous. So what I want to talk about next is the similar to the story that I tried to cover before. Biden made some comments calling Vladimir Putin a war criminal and saying that he needs to be tried in the International Criminal Court for war crimes in Ukraine. And is he committing ordering war crimes in Ukraine? That is very likely, because that's usually what happens in war. That's why war is terrible and war is bad. Once it happens, once you open the doors and you turn a city or a country into a war zone, both sides are going to do terrible things. So is Putin a war criminal? And not just in this case in Ukraine, but in Syria. He was part of the destruction of with the U.S. and Syrian government, everybody who was doing airstrikes in Syria and destroying cities in Syria. They did war crimes in Syria. But what I'm shocked by is the hypocrisy and the audacity for Biden, of all people, the arguably one of the biggest war criminals alive on this planet right now, to come out and cry crocodile tears and pretend like he's so outraged at the fact that war crimes are being committed and civilians are being killed, that we need to escalate the situation even further than it already is. And the media is going along with this, of course. Every chance they get to run a story that makes Putin look like the devil and Hitler, and they get the chance to run the story, they're going to do it. No matter if it's false, if they have time to verify it or not, which is escalating the situation and even more than it already is, and trying to let people's emotion drive their opinions on what's happening. And again, we're in the middle of this is the middle of a war, so nobody should be, as it happens, just reporting it without trying to verify it or anything like that. So that's a whole other issue with what's going on right now. But specifically when it comes to the issue of trying Vladimir Putin for war crimes in Ukraine, if he's guilty of war crimes, if there's an investigation and he ordered war crimes, yes, he should be tried for it, just like every other war criminal in the world. But like I said, it's just weird to me to see the people in power in the U.S. who order these even worse war crimes on a regular basis in countries around the world, using this as like a legitimate thing that they're actually care about. And to regular people who don't follow these issues, who don't follow war closely, they see Biden and crying his crocodile tears, and they see all the hosts on MSNBC and CNN talking about refugees and how their lives are being destroyed and things like that. And regular people think that this is like genuine concern for human beings who are the victims of war. But me, somebody who follows war, somebody who talks about war, I've talked about war on my show since I started this show, and these wars have been something that I followed personally for years. I know that they don't actually care about civilians being killed. So I know this for a fact because for all the time that they've spent ignoring all of the other wars that the U.S. has initiated and is actively participating in, dropping bombs and destroying cities, they completely ignore them. They won't talk about them for years. I think at MSNBC they went over a year one time without talking about the genocide that we're facilitating in Yemen. So, but if you want an even just a more acute example of how they really don't care about the casualties of war, what happened when the Afghanistan papers came out? Documents from our own government showing that we were just there from the inception of the war. They landed in Afghanistan. They didn't know what they were doing. They were just bombing random people, random civilians, covering up, had a massive, elaborate scheme to cover up civilian casualties. And they turned the whole thing into a money pit and a money-making operation and turned Afghanistan into an endless war zone for the military-industrial complex. And they lied about it to the public for decades. That's nothing I said there is up for debate. And of course, committing war crimes on a regular basis throughout the entire time, lying about it to the public. None of that is up for debate. None of that we don't need to see any further evidence of that. If you follow what the news stories and you follow what was in their own words in the interviews that were published as part of the Afghanistan papers, that's exactly what's going on. That was what was going on in Afghanistan. And then when we learned that, was there this nonstop wall-to-wall coverage about the war crimes and war criminals and this war is so immoral, and oh my God, I can't believe in the 21st century people are out here slaughtering each other and destroying cities and uncivilized savages and all. Where was all this animation when we found out our own government is doing what's happening in Ukraine right now? We were doing it on a scale multiple times worse, and we were doing it for 2 decades. So like they clearly don't care about civilian casualties, because there's no way you see the Afghanistan papers and you are moved to your core. But when the Afghanistan papers came out, it must have been like, and it was like right around the time of one of Donald Trump's impeachment, and within like days, nobody was talking about it. You couldn't hear about the Afghanistan papers anywhere. You couldn't hear about. You didn't hear about any further investigation, criminal investigations here in the United States from the people who were lying about the war, profiting off of the war, and covering up murdering civilians in Afghanistan. You didn't hear any conversation about that. To this day, there hasn't been a single investigation about the Afghanistan papers. So that goes to show you that given the proof and the mountains of evidence that civilians are being slaughtered, they really don't care. This is not an issue that concerns them. So when I see them, and again, all the crocodile tears about Ukraine, and again, it's not to say what's happening in Ukraine isn't a horrible situation. Any human being should be moved by, again, witnessing what's happening in a war zone, any war zone around the world. It's a horrible thing. And it should be like within anybody's human nature to want to do anything they can to make it stop. That being said, like I said, Joe Biden and all of these mainstream media pundits and hosts and people who regularly do the propaganda to facilitate more war all around the world and cover up war crimes committed by our government. When I see them crying their crocodile tears about Ukraine, I know 100% for beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're doing it for nefarious purpose. There's something sinister afoot here, and they really the war machine is working too well. The propaganda there is too much in lockstep, and the emotional pleas about the women and the children and the war crimes and civilians being targeted, all of that is as it normally is being used to push for more war. And that is a huge problem, because where we're at, I don't see how it can escalate any further short of us just like literally putting U.S. troops in Ukraine, shooting down Russian jets, and like literally engaged in the shooting war with Russia, the U.S. and all of our allies. So it's very concerning to me. Yes, of course, the hypocrisy angle of it is like jaw dropping, and it's almost beyond comprehension. I'm over here. I was thinking about how I'm going to do this segment and to get across just how much they really don't care about civilian casualties, and there's nothing I could do to adequately describe it because of all of their coverage on, like I said, just the Afghanistan papers alone, that long example I gave on that, what's happening in Yemen, and our destruction of Syria. Like, they don't care about any of those wars. Libya, they don't care about any of that. So now, it's like I said, it's just to me, when I see it, I'm not giving anybody the benefit of the doubt of like, oh, maybe they really actually care about the Ukraine. And of course, it's the racist angle of like, oh, it's white people, it's happening to white people. But still, I don't think that's what's happening. Like I said, I think the war machine is moving way too efficiently to think that this is anything other than manufacturing consent for escalating into a literal shooting war with a nuclear power. So that's something that I think everybody should be concerned with at this point and should be following. So let me see what's happening in live chat. Zani2 says, thank the imaginary gods. It's been a minute. Unapologetic. Hope you're well. I am doing okay. Glad to see you in the chat, Zani2. Always in the live streams. I appreciate you showing up. Let me see what else is happening in the chat. Sure. Oh, I see a comment about this lab. I guess I'll get into that like maybe a little bit later. Honestly, I think this whole thing is fucking ridiculous. The way that everybody has been like going off on it, but Zani2 says, "Thank goodness Biden is in charge on the brink of World War III. Given his age, we're lucky. In one of his less lucid moments, he may relive the '60s and remember that nuclear war is bad." Yeah, I mean, he is clearly not in his prime, and as you're talking about, like this will literally like right at the doorstep of some sort of nuclear exchange or nuclear war, and the president of the United States, who like, I think he's the only person who could order a nuclear strike, is like not clearly not with it, falling asleep in meetings and uh, fucking can't ever get a coherent thought out. Uh, Definitely lives off a teleprompter. Like he is just a puppet, and so it raises the question like who's really calling the shots here? Who's really making in this like moment, like this very dangerous moment in human history? Who's really calling the shots? And it's people, unelected billionaires and millionaires, executives at the defense contractors and weapons manufacturers, and people the in the fossil fuel industry. These are the people, the moneyed interests, the people who have profit to gain from this. They're the ones who are driving the decision. And at no point in their lives, in their careers, have they ever made decisions based off of what's best for humans or a country or civilization. So it's we're in a dangerous position, and the people in charge making the decision are probably the last people on the planet that you'd want them to be doing that. So Ashore says, put your videos on Rockfin and Rumble. Definitely have to do that. They are up on Odyssey. If anything happens, the videos on Odyssey. Silver Nature says, I thought I lost. YouTube was working very hard to bury your videos. Yeah. It's been a little while since I uploaded. Let's see how. I mean, sometimes it's just crazy, and you can tell it's not really being suggested anywhere. So let's hope that they're actually going to be suggesting these videos that I talk about today. Adkid says, what's up? Glad to hear you and truly hope you are able to join SAB's the Revolutionary Blackout Network. That's what RBN is. On future podcasts, they have daily shows. Please do join. Yes. So before my last live stream, I was trying to go on Nick and CJ show that they do on Mondays, but there was a issue with that, and I couldn't. And ever since then, like I haven't been on really doing live streams, but that is definitely on the agenda, and I will try to do other shows on RBN too, like Sappies. Atkins is unapologetic. Last time I saw him on a live stream playing music from the chat suggestions. Oh yeah, that was probably one of the last live streams I did, and I think it got taken down too because uh, uh, the music, but yeah, that was fun. I definitely want to do that with y'all more. I don't know about right now in this live stream because I still have a couple more stories to get to, and it's getting late, and I work tomorrow. All of that. Oh yes, I've been working, so that's why y'all haven't really seen me. Yeah, they got me. They got me. Atkins says unapologetic. Please consider mainstream media narrative is so powerful. Even so-called progressives show frame the invasion solely to be the fault of Russia and Putin, and no mention of NATO and U.S. empire agenda. Yeah, there's a lot I could say about what's lacking from so-called progressive shows when it comes to what's happening in Ukraine. The point that you're making about how they're just framing this exclusively as a Russia like invasion. Of course, Russia invaded Ukraine, but like acting as if this was completely unprovoked. I've seen some people talking about like this is literally like the Iraq War. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Um, one, we Iraq is not on our border. There is no like legitimate. They pose no legitimate threat to U.S. Security. And again, that was we went all the way across the world to pick a fight in their country, destroy their infrastructure, and steal their oil. Um, that's it is beyond um, a caricature to say that's just the whole story of what's happening in Ukraine, ignoring the NATO expansion of the last however many decades. From it wasn't supposed to expand further than Germany, and now it's all the way on Russia's border. And to act like them floating Ukraine now joining NATO, literally putting NATO and all their military bases like hours from Russia's capital, to act like that wasn't like that had no impact on the decision here to invade Ukraine or to even be in this position to begin with. I just think that's ridiculous. And some people trying to do like crazy mental gymnastics and act like, oh, well, if he didn't, if NATO never expanded, he would have invaded anyway. You don't know that. You don't know that. But what we do know is they did expand, and we do know that for a very long time, most experts on this, every expert on this issue, saw that as something that would provoke Russian military action. And of course, you could say it's wrong because, like I say, all war is wrong. But that's my thought on that. Paul Eisenberg says, "I want to see evidence of alleged war crimes. Russia has a lot more casualties trying to prevent civilian deaths. That's like I said, I want to see the evidence of it. You also said they aren't just leveling places or doing Fallujah. Uh, Bucha is such a transparent false flag. And I'm glad that you mentioned Fallujah because I meant to talk about that um, during the whole segment. So imagine people who um ordered the were in positions of power during the height of the invasion of Iraq. People like Joe Biden, um, and all we learned about them using white phosphorus and depleted uranium in Fallujah, uh, poisoning people with radiation on purpose. On purpose. Um, And then again, for them to turn around and act like, oh, I swear to God, if Putin uses a chemical weapon somewhere in Ukraine, we have no choice but to start World War III with a nuclear armed power. Like, are you fucking serious? That's what I'm saying. Like, I I cannot get across how bad faith all of the crocodile tears are. I really can't. I really can't. All right, there's a lot of comments there. I don't think I'm gonna be able to get to all of them. I'm gonna get to the next story. Which one do I want to do? And by the way, this isn't like some highly produced stream we're doing here. This is me providing commentary on stories that I'm sure many of you have heard and seen all over the place. Do your own research on them. Find out whatever more important, relevant context you think you need. I'm just giving my perspective on the information that I've absorbed from different sources on whatever topic it is I choose to talk about, and I'm just giving the perspective of what I think of any regular person presented with the information that I've read, the conclusion that they would take or would have in this situation. That's really what I'm trying to do. This isn't some fucking. I'm not running like some high end newspaper with 6 editors and fact checkers and people sourcing, and I'm not doing all that shit. I'm not saying, and I appreciate all the shows they do. I'm just saying that's not what's happening here tonight on this live stream. We're providing political commentary. Uh, let me see. All right, so I think I'm gonna do the Julian Assange story. Let me get fired up in this bitch. Let me get fired up right now. So at this point, it's been years since Julian Assange was dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy and has been in Belmarsh prison, um, awaiting his sham extradition to the United States because his role as a publisher in one of the most historic acts of journalism in my lifetime, when he published the Iraq and Afghanistan war logs with documents that were provided to him by Chelsea Manning. Uh, so that's what he's facing trial for. He's There's been back and forth with the extradition. Uh, had to wait months in between hearings. Originally, the judge heard both sides, basically agreed with the U.S., which is crazy. Agreed with the U.S. the basis of the argument from the Justice Department that they had some sort of right to uh, not only prosecute a journalist for doing journalism, but to have him extradited. And so the judge basically agreed with the precedent that, oh yeah, it's cool for major power to have journalists dragged to their country from around the world to face trial for doing journalism, which is I still will never wrap my mind around. But then she originally denied the extradition request because the she felt that the U.S. couldn't guarantee Julian Assange's safety if he was in a U.S. prison because of the risk of suicide, uh, his health condition, and things like that, or the risk of him being assassinated or something else. They could not guarantee his safety, so the judge originally denied the extradition request. The U.S. appealed it. There was another hearing where the U.S. was like, "Oh no, trust me, we're good. We could definitely keep Julian Assange alive if he comes to the United States." Again, which I think was a clever way to distract from the core of what was actually happening there. Like a journalist is being prosecuted for journalism, so they turned this whole hearing into whether or not a referendum on how safe U.S. prisons were. But that's a whole other topic. And after that hearing, the judge denied. I mean, the judge agreed to the extradition request. Julian Assange legal team appealed it. Had to wait months and months later. Then the Supreme Court finally came with the decision that they were going to deny the appeal. So the previous ruling stands, and there are no more appeals. This went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they were the ones who denied this. The Supreme Court in the UK. So I don't see any other, short of some sort of pardon or the Department of Justice just like dropping the case, which seems very unlikely, short of extraordinary public outrage. They're going to extradite Julian Assange to the United States. I guess at this point they're waiting for a date to be set by the judge, and this is one of those stories that show just how brutal empire really is, and what the lengths that they'll go to silence people who expose their crimes and who are critical of them. And I have no idea what's going to happen to Julian Assange when he gets extradited to the United States. His life will definitely be at risk. It's public knowledge at this point that the CIA was already crafting plans and drafting plans on and trying to put them into motion on how to kidnap and assassinate Julian Assange. So the fact that he's going to be now put into U.S. custody, so they would have the best opportunity possible to carry out such plans. It's going to be an issue. Again, his health is an issue. His mental health status is an issue, and again, he's at risk of suicide. So he's being tried under the Espionage Act, which means he won't even be able to make an actual defense, present his actual defense in court, because whether or not you think the information you published is for the public good or not is irrelevant, because the information is considered top secret. And so he's gonna, no matter what, he can't make a defense for himself. And also the cyber hacking crimes that they charged him with on the indictment. There is no legal defense for that other than he didn't hack them, but they're not going to listen to that argument anyway. So I don't know what's going to happen when they extradite Julian Assange to the United States, but this moment in history should definitely never be forgotten, because and regardless how it turns out in court, and if there is some miracle in the courtrooms when he's extradited here in the United States, and they let him go, which is again, there's a small chance of that happening, extremely small chance of that happening. No matter what happens, for the last 10 years, they took the most consequential, the most influential, and impactful journalists in the world. They took him out of commission uh, for no other reason other than he did his job and he exposed the crimes of the powerful. He exposed the war crimes of the powerful. And because of that, they forced him to be on the run and to live in the Ecuadorian embassy for however long it was, 7 years. Now, the whole episode in Belmarsh. And because of that, and again, of course, during the whole time, it was unjust and it was for bullshit, and they had all the bullshit reasons that they would come up to try to justify prosecuting a journalist. But either way, they took those 10 years are gone. All the stories that Julian Assange could have published, those they've passed, and that's a huge blow to journalism, because while he was an active journalist, he did break the most important stories of our lifetime. Of course, like the Iraq Afghanistan war logs, which again, those were seismic at the time. Those were the biggest leaks of classified documents, military documents ever, and they exposed horrific crimes that the U.S. was engaging in on a regular basis in Iraq and Afghanistan. The massacring and the genocide of civilians, and how they were just doing it with impunity. So that was a seismic story. If that was the only story he did in his entire life, he would still be one of the most impactful journalists ever. But that wasn't. If you go and look at the WikiLeaks archives of the stories that they published, of course the DNC leaks, and all the corruption in the Democratic Party and the Clinton Foundation that they exposed. They exposed a story about it was the French government trying to sink boats of refugees so that they wouldn't get to France. Again, the same government in France out there now singing the praises of refugees when it's convenient and when they can use it to provoke more war. But before, when the wars were happening in secret, they were out there planning on how they could kill refugees trying to come to escape the wars that they started in these people's home country, and the French government was over there planning on how to kill them before they could get to their country. That was a story that was published by WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. The Vault 7 leaks that showed the unreal hacking capabilities of the CIA and the ability to basically hack into everything and anything with ease. And not just that they had those hacking capabilities, but they also got leaked from the CIA. Somebody stole them from the CIA, and they were out in the open. That was Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, who made that public. Because if I'm not aware if they were the ones who told the CIA. I think I'm remembering correctly, they were the ones who told the CIA that those weapons were stolen. And so if that's the case, the CIA wouldn't have even known, and damn sure the public wouldn't have ever known about the things we learned in Vault 7 if it hadn't been for WikiLeaks. So again, one of the most consequential journalists alive right now of our lifetime, and powerful governments have colluded like a fucking cabal to destroy his life, destroy his physical health, destroy his mental health, and punish him because he did journalism. And it's just one of those just mask off moments. I don't know what's left to say. Like this is what empire is, and all of the and they'll go around and they'll act like they care about democracies in other countries, right? You care so much about democracy. What about freedom of the press? What about free speech and the right for people to expose their governments, to criticize their governments, and dissent? What about that? Because when somebody does, Julian Assange isn't even a U.S. citizen. When somebody does it from all on the other side of the world, where our government is so brutish and so authoritarian that we will drag them to the United States so that we could lock them up and imprison them for the rest of their life. So remember that anytime anybody try to sell you some bullshit about we're protecting democracies around the world, we don't give a fuck about democracy. We don't give a fuck about free speech or any of those things. It's all a ruse. So this is crazy. This is crazy. And the story, the trial, if he's extradited, should be televised. I highly doubt that would happen. I highly doubt that would happen. Everybody in the world should see this fucking trial, and see what they do to journalists, and see how they try to lock a journalist up for the rest of his fucking life, because he told the truth about what's happening in these wars, and it's crazy, and we've seen what they do. There's almost no chance that he's going to come here and not get locked up in prison for probably the rest of his life. You see what they did with Chelsea Manning, and she had to get pardoned by the Obama administration when after years in prison and being tortured. And Daniel Hale, when he released the documents on he was a whistleblower on the CIA's drone assassination program, was just murdering civilians indiscriminately around the world. So when people tell the truth about war criminals, about our war criminals, it's basically a life sentence for them. They're either going to spend the rest of their life on the run, or be imprisoned and tortured, or might get assassinated, like CIA was planning on doing with Julian Assange before they got him in custody. So again, like I said before, the only thing that I could think could change the course of what's happening right now, and of course this shit is. This has been a sham trial from the beginning. He's being railroaded. And the only thing, like, there is going to be no justice that comes from this in the courtroom. Everybody is in agreement that Julian Assange is going to get locked up in prison. There is no, like, impartiality here. The judge making all types of dumbass rulings. The case should have been thrown out by the fact that they were spying on Julian Assange in the embassy, spying on his meetings with his lawyer, which should have, again, tainted the whole case. Preventing him from meeting with his lawyers, preventing him with access to the internet to make his own case. Like, all the different ways that the technicalities that this case should have been thrown out. And the judge is still allowed it to go through. So what the point I'm making is there's not going to be, like, any justice. The justice system is working the way that it's intended, and by that I mean it's going to railroad anybody who crosses the elite. That's exactly what's going to happen here. So the only way that I see this changing course is with massive public outrage. And if there is not that massive public outrage, and he's allowed to be dragged to the United States, and they do this trial in secret, in the dark, and nobody is aware of it, nobody's making noise about it. They're gonna just do it, and they're gonna get away with it. We look how bad. I mean, this is it's kind of a separate story, but just to go on the scale of just how much they will just get away with lying to the public, and everybody would just shrug their shoulders and keep it moving, and not give it a second thought. Look at all of the shit that they got away with in COVID. And now Ukraine shit come up, and everybody's already tired of fucking COVID. Nobody wants to hear about how the government did the biggest fucking scam of my lifetime on the public and got away with it. Nobody even wants to hear about that shit anymore. So if we let this shit happen, if we let the trial happen and he gets locked up, there's never going to be another time when the public would be more outraged and agitating for him to be released than right now. Before this trial happens and while this trial is happening. So I definitely want to do more to bring attention to this issue, whatever I can, because like I said, this is just a crazy story. This is a fucking crazy story. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna get to the comments in the chat. Laptop's about to die. Let me plug it in real quick. All right, I'm back. Let me see what's happening in the live chat. So I'm not seeing this is I guess it's back to the Ukraine stuff. I'm gonna get to the Julian Assange comments in a minute. Somebody says the Pentagon has already expressed that we're never engaging Russia over this. They literally left Biden out to dry. I I wouldn't put anything past them. Look at where we're at. Unprecedented sanctions. Sanctions that we put on Russia are literally an act of war. We've tried to destroy the Russian economy. We're giving billions of dollars of weapons to Ukraine to help them kill Russian soldiers. Um, and everywhere you turn around, the war machine, including the mainstream media, and politicians who are on the take by the defense contractors, which is who's really running the show here. They're all none of this is enough. They want to escalate even more. So again, short of just a shoot 'em up war with Russia, I don't know how we escalate any more than we already are. So I wouldn't rule out that they might literally try to get involved militarily with Russia. I don't put it past them. They've done horrific, terrible wars and made terrible decisions that have impacted the rest of the world negatively for decades and no remorse, and they'll just keep doing it. So just because this is extremely more volatile because the possibility of a nuclear exchange, I think these people are like really psychopaths. I don't think they give a fuck. I really don't. So I do think we should be concerned because how close we are to that possibility. So Bill Bradley says also Assange is not a journalist. He's a publisher. They have gone after journalists before. Assange is different because he is the first publisher. I agree. He is a public. WikiLeaks is a publication. He's a publisher. Um, but journalism is a very broad term, and it's really just the anything that involves like reporting on the news or even commentary on the news um, is considered journalism. So he is a journalist. You could say he's a publisher. Oh shit, I left my thing up. You could say he's a publisher or publisher first, even, but technically he's a journalist. Give me 1 second. Also, it's back. Okay. Bill Bradley says it's called WikiLeaks. All he does is publish leaks. He does no investigative journalism. I didn't say he was an investigative journalist. He is a journalist, though. All right, I'm gonna have to look up the definition of journalist midstream, and I had to. Okay, so this is the definition of journalist: a person who writes for newspapers, magazines, or news websites, or prepares news to be broadcast. I think the work that Julian Assange has done at WikiLeaks fits into that category. So I would call it a journalist. Um, Let me see. Also, I want to give a shout out to uh, all the activists who have kept making noise about Julian Assange over the last few years here in the United States, in the UK, all around the world, because they want people to forget about him, and so any work that people can do to, like I said, uh, uh, bring the story to the conscience of the public is a good thing. And like I said, that's probably the only way to prevent the extradition or prevent Julian Assange from being put in prison. All right, so I'm going to go on to the next story. I think I have two more that I have to do. Uh, oh boy, it's 3 a.m. Which one do I want to do, RT or the food shortage? I'm gonna do the food shortage story first. Oh shit! I have a video from for that one that I was supposed to play, and let me just make sure it's working. And of course, it is not. Wait a second.
With regard to food shortage.
Oh, I know why he's doing that. Oh, yeah, I fucked it up. All right. I have the audio. Give me 1 second. Let me know if you guys can hear this.
With regard to food shortage, yes, we did talk about food shortages. And
Give me a 1 if you in the chat if you heard that. Give me a 2 if you didn't hear anything. All right, you heard it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna play the audio from that. When I edit it, I'll just put the video in there. Uh Shit. My phone is dying. All right, I know what I'm gonna do. Bill Bradley has to check out. Um, Glad you were able to pop into the live stream. It's been a while. Hopefully, I will do one again soon in like a few days. But I'll upload the videos, like the clips, and you could watch them. Uh, all right, so I'm gonna play that clip, or I'm gonna play the audio for the stream. All right, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, so my phone's about to die. I'm using the hotspot because the Wi-Fi isn't working. That's why I have to keep plugging it in. Uh, all right. So there's a lot going on with the situation in Ukraine. The sanctions are a really big deal, and a lot of context has been left out of the conversation when it comes to these sanctions, because I mean, there's so many reasons to be against them. First of all, just big picture, who is the U.S. and our allies to go around and pretend like we're the enforcers of international law, while we are literally the biggest violators of international law? So, I mean, it's kind of like having the mob boss pretend like he's the sheriff of the town or whatever. Like, okay, you could try to lock me up for jaywalking or whatever, but you're like running the biggest organized crime family in the city. So, really, like, does this make any sense? So, there's that whole aspect to it. Like, okay, so the countries responsible for the devastation in Iraq and Syria and Yemen, Afghanistan, Libya, Somalia, we're now going to turn around and pretend like uh, aggressors in a war are so out of bounds that we need to put unprecedented sanctions on them. Like, okay, that this doesn't make any sense morally. Just it doesn't make any sense. And of course, the sanctions hurt people. They don't hurt the oligarchs. Vladimir Putin is not going to miss a meal because of these sanctions. None of these billionaire oligarchs in Russia are going to miss a meal because of these sanctions. What's going to happen is they're going to negatively impact regular people in Russia, as they have been since the day we put them on the sanctions on Russia. And it's going to make life harder for regular people. Ultimately, it's going to end up killing regular people. And it doesn't change the situation. Vladimir Putin is still going to be the president of Russia. If his demands aren't met in Ukraine, he'll still be in Ukraine. So these sanctions, first of all, again, to back it up, we have no moral authority to be policing anybody around the world. The sanctions aren't really used to enforce international law. Prime example being the fact that there are no sanctions on the U.S. or our allies, biggest criminals in the world. So the sanctions, they target civilians, and then also, it's not like a one-way street here. When you put the sanctions on them, it's going to have effects on our economy and the economy around the world. So how does the saying go? Something like cutting off the nose to spite the face or some shit like that. I don't know, but like, so out of this need for this lust for retribution and like punishment on Russia, we're willing to put sanctions on them that will hurt people in our country. So it really makes no sense. It makes no sense. No person, I can imagine meeting a person on the street and them knowing what I know about sanctions and them thinking it's a good idea. The only people who think this is a good idea are fucking lunatics, neocon lunatics, who are literally delusional at this point and think somehow they're going to overthrow the Russian government and prove that we're the tough guys around the world. Those are the only people who are in support of these sanctions. And now we're even learning how they're going to have even worse effects than I personally thought on people outside of Russia. Because previously the main concern was the gas that Russia provides, the oil and gas that Russia provides to Europe. Because so if we're sanctioning Russian exports, and this is what makes the issue even more complicated. Russia, unlike the United States, where our economy is run on price gouging people for healthcare and creating weapons of destruction for wars around the world and bullshit financial institutions and things like that make up our entire economy. Russia actually exports things around the world, and they produce things that make life livable around the world. So one of the main concerns with the sanctions and banning Russian exports and anything having to do with Russia is how is Europe going to keep the lights on and get natural gas and get oil to different countries in Europe. That was one of the main concerns with the sanctions in the beginning. And that there's also developments there. Russia now saying that they're not accepting payments for oil in euros or in U.S. dollars, which is a huge deal. Honestly, I should do an entire segment about that. But the another consequence of these sanctions now is there are going to be food shortages, because Ukraine, for several reasons, there are going to be fuel shortage. I mean, food shortages around the world. Ukraine and Russia, they provide a lot of the grain that goes to countries in Europe and other places around the world. I believe in Asia. So I think it's like 40% of the grain that goes to Europe or something like that comes from Russia or Ukraine, or might it actually be the world? Let me double check that before I finish this segment. But they provide a lot of grain around the world. So while they're in the middle of a war, first of all, Ukraine, logistically, it might be hard to export crops from Ukraine while they're in the middle of a fucking country's into a war zone. Also, now the sanctions on Russia, so Russia can't really export them anywhere else because that's the deal with sanctions. You prevent them from selling their goods to other places. So that takes a huge hit in the grain that's being supplied around the world, and also there's they produce a lot of the fertilizer that's used around the world. So, well, Russia and Belarus. Belarus has been is Russia's ally, and they've helped in this war in Ukraine. They're actively helping Russia try to take over parts of Ukraine. So they've been sanctioned too. And like I said, they produce like 40% of the fertilizer that's used around the world. So now the price of fertilizer is skyrocketing, and some farmers are not buying fertilizers. So obviously they can't grow as much if that's the case. So again, this lust for punishment and retribution is going to lead to a whole other international crisis that we don't know exactly this how bad it's going to get, the scale of it. So here's Biden acknowledging it and telling everybody why it's such a great thing that people in countries around the world, there's going to be food shortages. The price, even here, while prices are already skyrocketing with food, it's going to go up even more. And before they were just skyrocketing because the corporations were price gouging people, and they felt like it, and nobody was going to do anything about it. Now, because of this entirely manufactured crisis, the prices are going to go up again. And here's Biden telling everybody, hey, this is a great idea, and you should be excited that there's going to be a food shortage. So I have the clip, and I'll break it down. I'll show it to you, and then I'll come back and break it down. Give me 1 second. I have to get the phone like I was talking about. Damn. All right, I got it.
With regard to food shortage, yes, we did talk about food shortages. and it's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia. It's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and our country as well. And because both Russia and Ukraine have been the breadbasket of Europe in terms of wheat, for example, just to give you one example. But we had a long discussion in the G7 with both the United States, which is a significant, the third largest producer of wheat in the world, as well as Canada, which is also a major, major producer. And we both talked about how we could increase and disseminate more rapidly food shortages. And in addition to that, we talked about urging all the European countries and everyone else to end trade restrictions on sending limitations on sending food abroad. And so we are in the process of working out with our European friends what it would take to help alleviate the concerns relative to food shortages.
Yeah, so again, completely manufactured crisis. Because we couldn't help but to put the sanctions on Russia, the sanctions that we should not have put on them in the first place. Now they got to do all this catch up to try to avert some type of worldwide famine. So I mean, the situation is looking very grim out here. Honestly, it's just it just keeps getting worse. And these are all completely manufactured crises. And I don't know, man. I don't know. If you could learn to grow food, I guess you should do that. If you do know how to grow food, teach somebody. I don't know. This shit is and something I also want to talk about with the sanctions is, so all the people who, you know what, I'm not even going to go there. I'm just not even going to go there. I'm going to leave this segment where it is right now because I just think this is an important topic. I don't know what can possibly be done about this. Again, this is above my pay grade. Something that is always an option on the table for me now is stimulus checks. Yep, give out some checks because I'm telling you, the price of food, I'm watching it go up already. I've been watching it go up for like since COVID started, going up in unbelievable amounts. And again, because of corporate greed. And so now it's going to get even worse, not because of like some fucking hurricane turned over banana truck or whatever, and now your city's not going to get bananas or whatever the fuck. No, but because the neocons are so thirsty for regime change that they put sanctions on Russia, and that's going to cause the cost of food to go up here. So I don't know, stimulus checks to people. I don't give money to people. I nationalize the food industry to cut out the waste that the profit incentive creates. I don't know, but again, this seems like a very bad situation. Let me see what's happening in the chat. Okay, so some of y'all in the chat talking about the ways that Russia is trying to like evade the sanctions and prevent the economy from imploding. You guys were talking about the demand for payment in rubles. That was a bold move, and everything happening right now is completely uh, 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 reshaping the like world order, however you want to think about it. And the fact that the West threw everything that they could at Russia in terms of sanctions, sanctioning their central bank, they did everything they could to try to implode the Russian economy, and there's still, but simply because of the fact that they produce all these essential uh, uh, um, goods and services to other countries around the world, people are realizing, okay, well, we can't really just sanction Russia to death without that affecting us. So with the demanding payment for oil in rubles, there's no way that Europe cannot pay for that oil in rubles because the way it works, they already have an agreement with Russia, and Russia's supposed to provide them however much oil to keep the lights on and keep the cities functioning and whatever. Um, to this point, Russia hasn't said, "Oh, you want to sanction us? Well, you could go find your own oil." They haven't done that, which would be crazy. It would escalate the situation even worse because there'd be unbelievable amounts of deaths across Europe if that would have happened. But he hasn't escalated to that point. But instead, he says, "Okay, you have to pay. So you want to try to implode the our currency. Well, now you have to buy our currency in order to keep the lights on, and you have to keep the lights on. And there's literally nowhere else in the world that they could get oil, as much oil as they would need to keep their cities running in the short term. There's nowhere else they can get it other than the previously agreed deals with Russia. So they're not renegotiating the deals or anything like that. The price is exactly the same, but the demanding payment in rubles, not euros or the U.S. dollar, which is big because of the petrodollar and the um, effect that the U.S. currency and the euros has on the oil market. So for now, one of the biggest sellers or exporters of oil to now say we're not using to overnight not use the U.S. dollar or the euro anymore for our transactions, only our currency. That is definitely going to be a big boost to Russia. So the sanctions might actually put them in a better position than they were before the sanctions. Not in terms of everyday life of people in Russia, because um, sometimes they still can't take money out of the bank. Their bank runs, and some banks just like literally just stop doing business in Russia, and people don't know what the fuck how to get their money. So people's lives are still going to be bad. But in terms of the Russian economy in general, in the long term, this might actually put them in a position to be more adversarial to the U.S. if they can evade sanctions, simply because how the value that they provide to other countries. Where Pilgrim says Aldi, German discount supermarket, says around 400 items will be going up between 20 and 50% due to the impending shortages. They have stores outside of Germany. Not sure about those. Yeah, so there Aldi's. I live in Florida. There are Aldi's here, um, and it is like one of those discount supermarkets. So for them to be jacking up prices 20 to 50%, that's crazy. I know the dollar store. Um, there's a dollar store that actually all the items they were like $1. Over the last few months, they changed the prices, and everything in there is like, or a lot of the things in there, most of the things in there are like $1.25 now. So that's like literally a 25% increase overnight. Yeah, and that was just because of corporate profit and corporate greed and price gouging people. Um, God knows what they're going to do if there's like a legitimate shortage. Uh, I want to read your comments. I'm going to read your comments. You have good comments, but there's just no name there. Um, Biden can use an executive order to freeze prices. He's just not going to do it. Just shows how this is all manufactured and self-inflicted. Yeah, he probably could do that, and he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. Um, all right. Oh shit. So there was at least one more story I want to get to. At least one more story. If you guys can contribute to the show, it'd be greatly appreciated. There's a lot going on, and I definitely would love to be doing the show more often, but I need money. The prices out here is just completely out of control. Um, I've been working. That's why you haven't seen me out here working 40 plus hours a week. I'm trying to do the show. I wish I had the financial freedom to do the show, um, but that is not the case at this moment. So if you can contribute, help for me to keep doing more live streams, I would appreciate that. The more time I can spend doing live streams or doing whatever uh, to keep the show going, make content for you all, I would rather be doing that than working at some fucking restaurant as I am. But either way, if you can contribute to the show, we greatly appreciate it. I'm going to I'm really going to talk about RT real quick. You guys have heard everybody's take on this, all the contributors who worked at RT, who were currently working at RT when all this shit happened. Um, so I'm not going to, I mean, I'm not going to rehash everything you've heard a million times over. But, nah, this was a big one for me. That was, because oh my god, I'll get into this when I get into the story, but I'm gonna talk about the RT censorship and basically trying them, the powers that be trying to remove them from the internet. Oh, if you want to leave a comment and have it pop up on the screen, sort of like a super chat, you could do a donation through Streamlabs. Um, my channel is still demonetized by YouTube, so no super chat, but you can do Streamlabs donations. All right, so I'm gonna get to the RT story. So this situation in Ukraine, this war in Ukraine, has been used to advance the agenda of some of the most lunatic imperialist neocons in the country. Um, those who've wanted to escalate and provoke a war with a nuclear country like Russia, people who've been itching for something like that for at least the last since 2016. Um, People who there's been a lot of people getting away with crazy shit because of the situation in Ukraine. Weapons manufacturers making out like bandits, of course, getting billions of dollars in weapon sales uh, 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 because of this war. Uh, the oil companies here in the U.S. now going to have huge contracts with European countries, uh, and also a big part of or necessary part of the project of the imperialists is to silence the dissent and the anti-war voices and the people who have something to say about genocide for profit happening at the behest of the military-industrial complex. Um, so similar to the censorship around COVID, there is a new round of censorship coming, or here, that is here right now, because of the crisis in Ukraine. And because the situation is so bad and it's so scary and it's so emotional, the establishment has decided it is best for public safety that opposing points of view are just completely erased from the internet. And of course, as always, the amount of regular people, average people, with dissenting opinions who have been swept up in the censorship is too much to count. The smaller independent content creators who have also been subject to censorship on Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, demonetized, had their content deleted, getting strikes or losing their channels, whatever it may be. The amount of small content creators who've had to deal with that in this new wave of censorship because of Ukraine. Too much to count. One of the biggest moves, oh, to, one of the biggest acts of censorship, and that have happened since the start of this war, at least in the West, has been the assault on RT. Now, um, I'm assuming that a good percentage of my audience is familiar with the work that's done on RT. Um, when it comes to covering imperialism and U.S. foreign policy and our disastrous wars that we've started around the world, uh, there probably has not been a bigger uh, outlet that has facilitated some of the best anti-imperialist voices other than RT. They are really I'm really trying to think of somebody else who has hosted as many anti-imperialists as RT. You had RB, and again, at from years that they've been on RT or years since they've left and whatever. Some people, you may disagree with them and you may not view them the same way, but the work that they did at RT still stands. People like Abby Martin and her show Breaking the Set and Empire Files. I think both of them were on RT. Jesse Ventura was on RT. Chris Hedges was on RT. Tom Hartman was on RT at one point. And again, like I said, I disagree strongly with a lot of the people whose work I respect was on RT, but that's irrelevant. The point I'm trying to make is that was really a hub of anti-imperialist voices, of socialist voices, leftist voices. And they contributed a lot to my political formation because, like I said, just the amount of legendary voices that they hosted there that have provided me with a lot of context when it comes to our wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I remember watching videos on RT about the dirty wars in Latin America and all of the, like, with the Cold War and things like that. So the work that they've done to cover imperialism and on other topics, but that's what comes to the front of mind for me because I think that's the area that their work would be the most missed. So it's just crazy to me that they've now been completely banned from YouTube. So any content produced by RT and Sputnik America has been removed from YouTube. And whatever the fucking justification is completely bullshit. And this is a serious threat to freedom of speech because if they can do it to RT, they can do it to completely erase Chris Hedges from YouTube, erase Abby Martin's episodes from YouTube, Lee Camp, all those people. If they can do it to the biggest names in this field, they will do it, and they can do it to anyone. So, again, this is like a real shot across the bow. There should definitely everybody who consumes independent news and media, they should be very concerned at this point because this situation with Russia and Ukraine, who knows how long this can last, how long this can go on. But the censorship's just going to keep getting worse. And if they show that they could take out RT for providing context to what's going on and context around the NATO expansion and context around what was going on in the Donbass and the internet overlords, the tech oligarchs, they decided that point of view is not allowed at this point, and they got rid of them in a blink of an eye, and there's no recourse or anything like that. So just know, anybody who's coming out and on their shows and challenging the official narrative on what's happening in Ukraine, they're liable to have their channels completely removed, their content completely removed. If they do this for a living, they're putting that at risk because the censorship is out of control. it is as bad as you can possibly imagine it. The only way I can think it would be worse is if like you literally type in Ukraine and they like delete your channel. That's the only way I think it could get worse. But this is a very bad spot, and this fight over being able to post content on the internet on these huge platforms that everybody has access to. This is one of the most important fights of our life, and I feel like we're losing it because there's so many people who've they've just been erased. People, and this is kind of irrelevant. Well, not irrelevant, but not exactly related to RT. But people like Vanessa Beeley and blanking from Last American Vagabond channels. I mean, Twitter is deleted recently. No recourse. So it's a very turbulent time, to say the least, for independent voices who are challenging the mainstream narrative and the narrative coming from the establishment. So I just think this is a big deal. I know it happened weeks ago. You guys already heard everybody's opinion on it, but I definitely want to have my take out there. And another thing about it is, like, and so let me be clear, dude. If you go to RT's website, you can find their shows. I don't know if it's a complete archive, but you can still find their shows on RT's website for as long as it's up. I've seen them take down news outlets' websites with like at the blink of an eye, just like they would take them off of YouTube or whatever. You remember what happened with like Press TV, I think it was, and other outlets that they considered Iranian-backed. The State Department considered Iranian-backed media, and they just they literally seized their website. So it's up on RT right now. Who knows how long RT is going to be up? But and I was listening to Chris Hedges talk about it, and he put it into words in a very great way, which is about how what they're doing is like an assault on the record of history, because what's happening now is I'm sorry, there's some commotion going on outside. Either way, what I was saying is they provide a service to the records of history. One of the things that I really liked about doing this show is one of the things that I liked about doing this show is I got a record of how I viewed the events that were happening around the world in real time, and I would have that record for the rest of my life, and it could live on forever, however long it may live on. But I wanted that record there so I can go back, and especially in times like this where the gaslighting is just off the chain, and you want something that's constant and something that's an accurate representation of the time. That's one of the things that I think is valuable that independent media does. And with this assault on RT and anti-imperialism, it's we're going back to that issue of where the victor is the one who writes history. Um, with the internet, it put us in a position where we again, like, of course, get now our voices can be heard. Um, but if they do what they're doing right now and they just completely erase us, scrub us from the internet, um, who's to ever say that the Iraq War was wrong? Who's to ever say that us tearing Syria to shreds was nefarious and for the profits of the defense industry? Who's to say that the us funding a genocide in Yemen actually happened? So what they're doing is very sinister when you look at the big picture. So the censorship is just out of control. Again, I have no idea how to combat it, what we can do about it. I'm just giving my take on what's happening. Aware Pilgrim says you can stream RT on Odyssey and Rumble. Yes, that is true. And I definitely should let that be known. Odyssey and Rumble still have RT. And it's a good thing that we have Odyssey because and Rumble and Rockfade, all these other alternatives because we'd really be fucked big time if we didn't have any of those. So it's of course not the same as YouTube. It's not the same as Facebook and the reach that you have on Twitter, but at least it's something. At least it's something. So if you want to find RT content, um, you can go on Odyssey and Rock on. I think they're on Rockfin, but I know definitely they're on Rumble. All right. I got to the stories that I wanted to get to. I might end the live stream because it's 4 in the morning and I gotta get up and cut those videos and upload them. So I want to thank everybody for coming to the live stream. This completely, I mean, it wasn't unplanned. I was planning on doing the live stream unannounced, I would say. This unannounced live stream, I appreciate it. Um, Definitely going to be doing more content coming up. If you guys can help me do that, I'd appreciate it. And like I said, I would always rather be making content, doing this show, than out there, whatever, prostituting myself to some capitalists to make some money on the side. I would rather be doing this. So if you can contribute, I'd greatly appreciate it. Um, if there's anything else anybody has to say, I don't even remember how long I've been going. I went on at least 2 hours ago. And that's okay. It's a pretty decent live stream, especially for 1 in the morning. All right, so I'll see y'all later. I'll try to give y'all more notice next time I go live. Yeah. Thanks for coming.